We had this discussion last time, and that's how I picked it up, that what happens, which one is static and which one is dynamic, and we said Islam, Silm, is dynamic, it's a verb. Just like Iman is a state, it's not a dynamic. Just like Nia is static, Qasd is dynamic. So here, Allah is saying, Udkhul Silm. Enter Islam wholeheartedly, all of it. Right away, Allah says, do not follow the footsteps of Shaitan. Always you see that. Allah makes sure which path and which not path. So it's tight. The word akal means tighten. Remember we talked about, at that time we just pointed out, but what happens in 49:14? Allah said, do not tell Bedouin, they should not say, we have Iman, they should say, we entered Islam. Right? Allah is not addressing everybody. Allah is, by the way, there are only 2 times the word Arab as a population, as a group, is used. Arabic itself means to clarify. There's nothing wrong there. But Arab, the word Arab is used both in derogatory term. It's like denoting Bedouin. So in this particular one, Allah is saying,
don't say we are amanna.
Right? Which group? It's not for everybody, that particular group. So you have to see why, what context that was. And Allah is clarifying. You see, they have a problem. They have not entered. It has not entered their heart. So Allah is giving a warning to a particular group whose heart has not got it. For them. That's why Allah is saying, enter Islam wholeheartedly. That's why I gave the number 3, the third last reference, 3:7. Please remember these verses. They're very important. Allah is saying there are specific verses and there are generic verses, ambiguous. What happens with those? Those with deviant hearts who have been inflicted with dalala, they will always bring up their elusiveness. What does it do, man? Why are you trying to generalize something that was very specific? Every time, it's not just in Islam, it's actually very, very well known in science, in hard science. They bring on examples, say, but this. So who cares? That's not you. And that's why the false equivalence starts. But anytime you say, but what happens? Nothing happens. That's not relevant in this topic.
One thing,
Yes.
in one ayah, there is لِيَزْدَادُوا إِيمَانًا مَعَ إِيمَانِهِمْ.
Yes.
It means that Iman become increasing.
Yes, we talked about that. It's like having a pond. A pond is a pond. A lake is a lake. It doesn't matter how deep.
It is
So-
fast.
One pond has a lot of water, another pond is little. You can have deeper. That's why it's so important. Allah is saying that it has not reached their heart. It's not deep enough. They don't have it. It's superficial. So you have Iman of Abu Bakr and you have Munafiqs.
Oh, yes.
It did not reach their heart. Why heart is important? Because the heart is the one that has the intention. Conscience is in heart.
But when it comes to the term dynamic, we consider the things which get changed as
Constantly,
dynamic.
it's a time, function of time.
Yeah,
No.
Not the day.
Increasing, decreasing.
Its pond is always pond.
yeah, exactly. So, but we consider the things when it gets changed over time. So the same. I mean, it can be. We call it dynamic.
Yeah.
But so in none of the cases which are considered as dynamic, the things go away. In all the cases, the things which are considered as dynamic, the thing is there. Whether it's motion, whether it is
A good
phenomena.
analogy, Sanagu, very good analogy is Nia and Kasar.
Right.
My Nia is going to the airport, but Kasar is telling me this street is blocked, so I'm changing direction. Did I change my Nia? No.
What I'm trying to say that iman increases and decreases. Okay, so it's a type of change which happens to iman. So can't we consider this as dynamic because
No. This is why I gave the example of Nia. You have Nia with all the resolve, right?
Nia cannot be
And
changed.
Nia is still same. Yet, Hadith Qudsi, you died in the path of Allah, your matter, right? Allah will catch him and cast him to hellfire because it was not real. It was superficial. But his Nia is Nia. And nobody knows.
So on the basis of the level of iman increasing and decreasing, can't we
I will-
consider
I
will-
dynamic?
I will do some explanation. In one book I saw and teach, there is two type of iman. One is no, iman cannot be changed.
Yes.
Not increasing, not decreasing. This is iman is called iman mutlaq.
Oh, I know that one. Yes.
Iman mutlaq mean amantu billahi wa
I know.
malaikatihi.
Either true or false.
This cannot be changed.
That, but
One iman is iman sharia, which is related to the amal.
you see, there we start to bifurcate. We start to go away, right? Let's stick to this. A pond is a pond until it's flattened and it's something else. It doesn't matter how much water it has. It's still a pond, right? A lake is a lake, right? Doesn't matter how much it has. Nia, true and false, and it's true. Your Nia is to reach the airport. Who knows? Only you know, and Allah knows.
Well, my,
So your depth of Nia
hmm.
is in true or false. Are you killing yourself to reach to the airport, or you just say, "Oh, I forgot"? Your Nia is still the same. That means it is not deep enough. It did not have the resolve. But your Nia, for you, unless you are a munafiq, was to reach to the airport. Iman is like that. Your Iman, the moment you have sincerely said Shahada, your Iman is to please Allah. That does not change. That's why movement does not become, it becomes murtad upon explicitly mentioning it.
So, what do we mean by dynamic?
That changes with time constantly.
So change in what? In terms of what?
Direction. You see, Nia sets direction. Isn't that first thing we discussed in terms of Nia?
Yeah.
Nia sets your direction. That doesn't change.
So that change doesn't happen with Iman?
No. It should not happen. If your Nia is real,
No,
if your Iman
with,
is real,
with Nia it's okay, but with Iman, that change with direction doesn't happen?
no.
I mean, when
That-
it increases,
No. Increasing does not mean direction change. You see the point? It's deep or not deep, resolved or not resolved. It did not change the direction. What changes direction is Islam. You have all Iman, you're a mu'min, but you're going to a prostitute place. And you die. You did not die on Islam. You did not die. You still are mu'min, but you are not Muslim. That's why Allah said, Ya allazina amanu. Mu'min,
Yeah.
do not die until you are Muslim. What does it mean? See, death is a dynamic thing going on. So before you die, make sure you know a state of Islam. That's what the first verse was. So yesterday this thought came to me, and I always said that if a thought comes to you, you should share. That was my promise first day. Science, by definition, is nothing but logic. If it is not logical, it's not science. It's anything else. It's dogma. There are two logics, deductive logic and inductive logic. Deductive logic has evidence. You know what is evidence?
Money.
Fact. There is a killing. There's a killing happened. First evidence you have to collect is he's actually dead. Right? If that did not happen, you have no evidence. That's why you cannot judge somebody without finding the dead body. So that evidence in deductive logic, which is a theoretical, Quran and Hadith. Even Sahaba's behavior, was not considered hadith. There is a hadith, they are not evidence. And it's very scientific. You cannot have three evidences, three sources of evidence. You can only have two. Logic. Major and minor. That's why Prophet repeatedly said, am I doing the right shahada? Have I given my evidence? So that's deductive logic.
Also, you mentioned that there's a hadith which said that the action of Sahaba is not evidence.
Yes, there's hadith. You can, if you want, I can.
Because I don't know the reference of this.
Yes.
You can share it.
Yes, I'll share that. Actually came up with another brother and John is correctly. See, Sahabas are great examples. There's hadith that, but they are not evidence. Why is that? Because they did different things.
They're not masoom.
That's right. They are not evidence. Evidence is extremely important. Scientifically, you must make sure they're facts.
In Quran we have radiyallahu anhum wa radu an.
Yes. So what?
Like mean Allah is
Please share them.
satisfied from them
It's
and
talking
they are
about the
satisfied
people in heaven.
in heaven.
Yes?
No, I mean like someone can be sinful or he may have sinned, but Allah may be pleased with him.
No, literally Allah is talking about Jannatun Adnan in heaven.
No, but in the Surah Fatah, it says that whoever has pledged allegiance to you under the tree, Allah has been satisfied with them and
Yes, Allah is Radi.
يبايعونك تحت جرة.
Yeah. So Sahaba's action, anybody's action other than Prophet Muhammad is not evidence. And that's a deductive logic. What is deductive logic? Theoretical. You might look it up, but it's very important in scientific. All the theories have to have this logic. It could be Newton, it could be Einstein. All theoretical work must have evidence, which they don't. Inductive logic, whatever happens naturally. If I have something artificial, like artificially I have created 10 elements, they are not evidence. As a matter of fact, any controlled experiment, any experiment that is controlled is no longer evidence. This is natural. This is not an evidence. Video recording is not evidence. You see how it is playing out? Very clear. And this is not from Quran or Hadith. This is the logic that existed throughout history. There is no inductive logic without natural phenomena. It has been molested. There is no deductive logic without Quran, without Allah, without God. That's why in ancient Greek, God was called the truth, Al-Haq. Haq is the evidence, the ultimate truth. So what is different today? We also have both major premise and minor premise. So what is the minor premise when you see naturally? That nobody talked about. In science, nobody talked about this fact that it has to be natural. If it is in a super collider in France, under this very controlled environment, that's not evidence. Because it's not natural. My research group is the first one to actually saw it this way. And that's why I discouraged doing controlled experiments. You observe nature under natural conditions. Otherwise, no matter what result you get, is tainted by the design that you have formulated to satisfy the establishment.
But also, when we do experiments, we like change one variable. We don't.
Yes.
We don't mess with other variable. Isn't it a control?
No, it's not. It's not control. See, control is when you are putting in a boundary and you are saying the temperature will be maintained at certain temperature. This is not
Evidence.
natural. You have assumed that there is nothing going on in and out in that box. So it has fundamentally have introduced a constraint that's not natural. This is not true. And that's why they got into this mess. They said, it doesn't matter what you're heating with, electricity or fire or microwave, temperature is the one we will control. Right? It's completely detached from reality.
One thing I will mention at the previous talking, you says that what did Hazrat Umar and moon problem.
Yes.
And also we have in Quran وَالسَّابِقُونَ الْأَوَّلُونَ مِنَ الْمُهَاجِرِينَ وَالْأَنصَارِ
Oh, subhanallah.
خَيْرُ الْقُرُونِ قَرْنِي ثُمَّ يَلُونَهُمْ in Hadith.
Yes.
We must accept that Sahaba was direct students of Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him.
Okay.
And if we go on footsteps for Tawaiqiyah and Sahaba, this is not illegal.
You see, why did I say that? Why is it relevant, this discussion?
This discussion was that
Did Omar have any problem that we are facing?
no,
Right? So now, in the beginning I mentioned that you have to know what you are facing right now. solution would not be what Omar did. Solution would be what Prophet Muhammad would do today. That's what I mean by evidence. What he did is the evidence.
But Muhammad himself, Nabi Kareem sallallahu alaihi wasallam himself didn't face what we all face.
Like we
He
can
didn't.
just, we
That's why, remember, very first day, whoever was first day, very first day, I said, the most important research question, most important,
Yeah,
as a matter of only research question.
How
Ask
the
him,
Prophet
what
Muhammad would
Prophet
do
Muhammad
research
would do
today.
today. That's the whole concept of doing research. And that's why whole this discussion is how would you do today? But who do we look to? Omar, Ali, Abu Bakr, Muawiyah, it doesn't matter. We should not be, I'm not saying they're bad. Only, I did make an exception, remember? I said, when it came to selecting leader, they are good examples. Still they are examples, because they varied. Every Khalifa is selected differently. They're good examples, but they're not absolute. So you have to do research. If Mahdi has to come back today, how would he operate? Because he's going to follow Prophet Muhammad, because he's not going to come back.
Yeah, exactly. The first reference is Quran and the second one is Hadith.
Yes, that's it.
Yeah.
But Hazrat Umar did some refines in governance. Like
Of course he did. For instance, he appointed judges. So, that is not the case.
Calendar.
Amir al-Mu'minin himself was doing the judges. Osman introduced the written version of Quran.
Yeah.
So, I told you, that's the most important research in human history. Can you imagine documenting Quran? If you make one mistake, you're done. Even Prophet Muhammad was warned that if you make one mistake, mess up, you'd be decapitated or something like that. You know that verse? Even Prophet Muhammad was warned. Yet Sahaba took that upon themselves that, look, all this Hafiz of Quran died. Right? We have to preserve this. And sure enough, they had the guidance from Prophet Muhammad. They collected all this. That was the most important research. What is the second most important research I mentioned? Bukhari's. See, major premise, minor premise. Always the case. You have to have two.
دا په انګلیسي کې بیا ورته یعنی کوم کار چې هغه د قرآن او د حدیثو خلاف نه وي او د قرآن او حدیث په قوي کېږي که هغه اجرا سي نو مشکل پکې نشته.
He's saying that if there is something which is not against Quran and Hadith, but it is endorsing the Quran and Hadith, then there is no problem with implementing it.
You see, again, who says that? See, this is the one Saudis use to say kulli halal. Kulli halal, unless it is forbidden. So what do? They said only for the forbidden. Look at the science. How Shaitan created dalala. Only thing forbidden, pork, wine, even organic wine. So refined wine is fine. Remember I sent you that whiskey thing. So there it's real.
Halal this.
Halal whiskey. Because it's not wine. Aspartame is a poison, but it's not pork. You see how dalala happened? So dalala mixed with lust for money, sex and control, you're gone. There's nothing good left. So it doesn't matter how it appears, you have to wholeheartedly reject. Just like I mentioned, Macron speaks French or not. It doesn't matter. We don't ever want to investigate. The brother, what are you saying? Macron speaks French. But I said, but it's based on the premise all Americans speak French, Macron is an American. Therefore, we're not even considering what is the fatwa. It doesn't matter how close it seems.
Should we continue?
Yes. So this is a inductive logic. Sugar more addictive than cocaine. Who found out? The guys who invented sugar are telling you now that it's more addictive. And there's a reference, I gave it that, in a prestigious medical journal. Now you tell me, how does it go with the hadith that even if you have a jug of intoxicant and you become drunk, one drop of that is haram. This is about sugar. Everybody agrees that cocaine is haram. But sugar is more addictive. According to them.
Lord Sahib, do we have a case like if someone drank lots of sugar and then he lost his mind?
That's what it is. That's where disease studies come.
Because
See, how did they find out? If you look at the paper, this is a scientific journal, their own journal. They gave excess amount. Nobody is going to be able to drink that much, right? So they gave it to lab rats. They are more affected with sugar than cocaine. Their logic. To me, the moment you know that there are 30 plus poison in sugar cane, that become automatic haram. Why? Because verse 2:168, it has to be from earth, and they are not.
But how can we calculate that it's 30 words of Allah?
Hmm?
How
No, how sugar is made, do you know? Remember what I said?
process?
Mullahs, first thing they should look at how it's made before calling it halal or haram. And if you just search, today I had an example of my student talking. One of my students gave a long speech. You know that the petroleum book that I submitted, one of the authors, he's the only, he was in Buddhist, and he remained Buddhist, he did not become Muslim, but he's a really good guy. Today he was giving interview with Australian TV on car batteries, the vehicles that
Lithium
run on
batteries.
electric cars. So, going back, if sugar is more addictive, so how do you do? If we have artificial material, we could have avoided. The whole world has been inflicted with sugar for the last, 60 years. It's all gone. Biggest problem in US, biggest problem, most mortality, do you know what it is? Obesity.
Yes.
Most people die because of obesity. Sugar is the culprit. And what happened with that? They changed that to saccharin, aspartame, made it progressively worse. And they're actually worse. So anybody can look it up and say, how is sugar made? So where do I catch it? Would you be able to accept it as halal? Yeah. This is a very big dogma. Believe it or not, I have a lot of Arabic students. Practically all were addicted to porn. You know what is the logic? It's not real, brother. It's artificial. You see, if real wine is haram, for them artificial wine, what is artificial wine? Synthetic one, right? It's halal. And of course they say it is halal, don't they?
So there is one thing, and you repeatedly said that we are surrounded by all these artificial matters.
Yes.
But so how we can practically get rid of these artificial matters? For example, I mean, as we are having, fortunately, we are having these discussions here. But what we can do at most, we can just decrease the amount of sugar we can use.
No, it's not at least. You can eliminate it. I have done that
You
for
are use
last,
alternatives,
last 12 years.
organic alternatives.
You are here for research, you are going to change things.
It's up to you. Now, I'm giving my own example. Last 12 years, I have not consumed sugar. I never bought it. I made cake. I made very delicious cakes.
So what I meant by decreasing means that
It's not decreasing.
yeah.
Eliminating.
Yeah.
Eliminate.
So we can eliminate. I can personally not take it, as well as advise my family and
Yes.
some relatives. But you know,
There's no
I mean, the issue of artificial matters doesn't end with this. We are surrounded like as you criticize.
Sanagul,
You-
you are not responsible for
That is an artificial.
Yes, talks of like, for
Yeah,
example,
exactly.
you can eliminate sugar, but how are you going to eliminate electrons?
No,
and
this is,
phone?
you are not responsible. Right now, if I told you that, brother, you are praying on this rug,
Mm.
Yes,
but
also-
you're supposed to, it's a very good example, please remember this. You're supposed to touch ground. But this is not ground, brother. This is artificial. As a matter of fact, you're telling me that this is haram way to made haram way. So what do you do? So go outside, right? You have an option. But brothers, wait. Shia people have solved this problem. They have a little disc. Isn't it true?
Yes.
Right? A little disc. But Shaitan always plays trick. Is the correct one? It's correct.
That's not
But,
ground then.
MashaAllah, Shaitan has inspired them. It's from Karbala. Boom. It's shirk. You see how bidat works? They started off right, and it's true. I had colleagues, Shia colleagues in the United States. He was praying, that's how I came to know. He doesn't have the disc. He doesn't carry it everywhere. So he's praying. So he put paper. That was a long time ago. And I was not all that interested in this at that time. I said, why are you putting paper? He said, it has to be natural. I could not realize at that time, because I was still in the first 400 papers, right? I was fully involved in Newtonian science. I said, oh, that's great. Understood, but is the paper acceptable? No, because it's artificial. So you have to be aware how Shaitan plays his role constantly.
But if you consider fertilizer, how we can fulfill the needs of the
Of course, in Canada it's available.
The
In
phones-
Canada there are shops. Every shop has all my shopping needs. All
Organic.
last 12 years is organic. All of them. Then they say, oh, it's expensive. Say, eat less. My grocery bill was $3,000. 3,000, that's three of us.
But you were a professor there. You could afford it. But
No,
how
that's the-
ordinary people can afford it?
That's the point. Eat less. Eat less. Nobody has a problem. What happens in Canada? Rich people eat good food because they can afford. What is the poor people doing? What are the poor people doing?
Processed food.
They are all processed food. They go to 99 cents hamburger. They are all obese.
If you
And in the third world country, it's reversed. Rich people here, I see every day,
Eat processed food.
they eat processed food, they brag about it. MashaAllah, I'm eating American Dorito.
But what we see in our community, like in
Opposite.
Afghanistan, how we can replace with what?
If
With
I-
what we can replace?
if
sugar?
I was in control, I would simply say shut them down. Same with cigarettes. Why do you have cigarette here? Why? Why do you have medicines? Now you know, even Salafists call me extremist. Recently we wanted to rent a house, they would not give, Saif, you'd love this story. They would not give us because I'm Taliban. I said, what? Brother, what happened? They literally would not give the house. I'm Taliban. I said, brother, Taliban is calling me Salafi and you are calling me Taliban. What's wrong with me? See, there's mistake.
If you consider sugar in Afghanistan, how we can, with what we can replace the
What
sugar?
is it before?
Huh?
Even 40 years ago, what is it?
40 years ago.
They also use sugar.
No, not as the. As
So,
the
consider
yeah,
100
what is
years
it?
old.
Good?
But for, yes.
Good or
For example, 200 years ago, they were not using the sugar, it's okay. But there,
No.
the population was, no, see,
See, what do
my grandfather, the uncle of my father, narrated, he was telling me the story of how our family got expanded. He told me that he was just telling about 40 or 50 years ago. He told me that there was he himself, my grandmother,
Yes, yes.
just my one uncle,
Right.
and poor people. Now, Alhamdulillah, we are around more than 100 people in
Yes.
a
One
family,
family,
which were poor people around 40 years ago. So how we can manage all these things?
What? This is the point.
At that time, then
Now,
just a single cow.
See, Allah says, "Alam naj'al al-ardha kifata ahya'an wa amwata."
it's so simple. You are falling into the trap. More human means better or worse.
Better.
Better.
That means you have 100 people doing research for you. So subhanallah, I can revolutionize. Prophet said 40 people is enough. And you have 100 in your own clan. So start working right now and turn those 400 people into real mujahid. Yes.
The farmer, in his grandfather's time, the farmer had also the 3 or 4 family members. They have grown to so much as well. So
Yes.
many of, yes, this is the
But we do not have the land as much as they have for poor people.
See, I
The
give my
same-
دا چې کوم ریسورسز په هغه ټایم کې په څلور کسان د پاره وو دومره د هغې فارمر چې تا ته کوم ریسورسز را رسېدل هغومره فیملي د هغې هم زیاته شوې ده چې
No,
ستاسو
see, the problem is that there has been population growth for thousands of years,
Yes.
but there was no artificial thing. The problem with current sciences, they say that, see, we have a population growth, so we need artificial things.
yes, we need it. We cannot do
this,
without.
So this is the trick they play. That see, we have population growth, natural resources cannot fulfill our needs, so we need artificial things.
I really trust in the things that Sir has been saying for these 4 or 5 months, and I have personally experienced and benefited from his knowledge, even in my own treatment. I believe what I'm trying to say is that how we can practically take actions.
That's, what more can I say?
We will kind of
Change yourself.
we should
You are not
have
responsible for
some-
Afghanistan. You're not responsible for the world. You're responsible for yourself and your immediate ones that you want them to, you want to see them in heaven with you.
Personally, see, my income, if I replace the sugar with honey,
No, you don't have to replace it, then you could go with gur.
with gur,
Yes.
so that's
replace
okay.
it with gur.
Yeah, I can replace that with
But
gur,
gur is
which is
essentially
organic.
Saccharin.
Well, I don't know that. That's another one.
Because
That's why I give the example that
the saccharose.
you cannot pray here, you cannot
For
pray
the
or
honest,
to
it's
wait.
We have
No,
we
if
have
you go to the field where they are
alternatives of
making the
sugar. That is
No.
honey. That is dates.
You
That
take it
is
from there.
It doesn't show it.
I know
That's
they-
the problem.
in Bangladesh they had,
دا ټول غلي بدیل
what
دی
is
پورې
it?
لپاره
Sulfur.
نو ټول موږ
To make it
استفاده
white.
کولای شو
Yeah.
ټول
غوړ
natural.
سره کوم بدلوي؟
Very
غوړ
polluted.
غوړ طبیعي غوړ دی زغرو د کنځلو د پنبدانې دی هغه
د
ټول
غوا
غوړ
غوندې.
په دوست هم دلته شته دي
غوړ
دا
نه راسي.
مالګه بدلولی شي د په دوست
Professor,
کابل کې
I
نچسل
think,
مالګه پیدا کېږي
for
د دویم
example,
کور ته وړمه ټول شان تبدیلیږي وریجې بدلیږي ټول شان بدلیږي بس
There's
Salah
some
had-
alternative in natural resources,
How
but,
they are doing things.
but the price is too high. For
That's-
example, in Afghanistan, an ordinary family cannot afford even
I
artificial
know.
things.
I know, Samara.
How can they?
It's always the problem. That's why I gave example of the West, where it's a real crisis. But tell me, when you can afford, rich ones, should you buy Doritos? Should you buy this processed food? I see that all the time. Should you buy medicine? Right? How much is Prophet's medicine worth?
No, the case of medicines is
How much
worse
is
than
hijama?
Afghanistan.
Right? And I talked about my own experience. This little girl, 1.5 year old, operated. Why? Why? Because he has money. It's the money people who are most corrupt. He could pay, and he was bragging about going to a private clinic because he's French, and I don't trust Afghani.
Yes.
I trusted French. I said, why don't you understand this
French
simple
clinic is
logic?
actually a
The
research
girl
center.
has no problem. She's walking fine. They saw in their X-ray that she needs operation. So you trusted Shaitan, Kuffar, more than your own intuition. So when I said, brother, trust me, I have written 4 books on medical science. I said, no. Do you have anyone from Canada who could give a second opinion? I said, yes. So no, not among your students.
Not from your students.
That's right.
Because they will prescribe organic.
Then they will.
Organic
So what you are doing,
medicine.
you want to reject every suggestion that would be Islamic. You make sure that if they are student, then they're Islamic, thinking Islamically, and he's not going to
Actually,
approve my.
Dr. Saab, the thing is here that there are many Hakims who also say that we are making organic things, and many they help worsen the case of many patients. So people are now scared of those things, that they are building it from an organic thing, and then
So
they
then
don't
they are
know
scared of everybody except Shaitan. Nobody else. See, that's why I give the example of Omar. When he saw somebody has a list, what's the name of the Sahaba who had a list of Munafiq?
Yeah.
Abdullah ibn Ubay.
No, Huzaifa.
Huzaifa
Who's that?
ibn Yaman.
He went to him, am I on the list? How many Muslims you know today is worried that, am I the Munafiq man? No. They are 100% sure that I'm right. And everybody is suggesting otherwise is either Salafi or extremist, everything else. That's why yesterday I posted, I did not know, I don't know if I shared with you now. If you feared Allah as much as you fear everybody else, you'll be going to heaven straight. People are afraid of everything. What people will say, what my manager will say, what the government will say, what the police will say,
Exactly.
everything, what the doctor will say. Because
Exactly.
I don't want to look like a foolish in front of a doctor because he's French, man.
Yeah, exactly.
That's where it starts. You do not fear Allah. Only entity you fear is Shaitan. Or inspired by Shaitan. This is the problem. So this is their paper. Now, you'll search, this is just now, right? They have been doing research. Hundreds of papers were published that showed systematically sugar is supposed to be more addictive than cocaine. But they are freaking out now because they are saying, oh, because it's in the title. Right? Then they're freaking out. So so many papers. The list is coming here. The references, all those papers, all in medical journals, that this is the direction it's going. Did they stop production of sugar? No. What did they do? They produced something worse. Saccharin, aspartame, and all this. Sucralose.
But Professor, is everything that is addictive is harmful?
Absolutely.
For example, I'm addicted with the prayer.
Oh,
Is it
oh,
harmful?
wouldn't that be nice? That's why the word, you know what I said? The word addiction does not exist in Quran.
It's called muskir.
Yeah.
Something which
Intoxicant.
lose your mind.
Oh,
See?
intoxicant.
That see, everything about Quran is so scientific. The word in addicted does not exist.
Yeah,
Because
yeah.
addiction is a negative word.
So that's
It
not
only
addiction.
applies
Mm.
to artificial. Sin you're addicted to. Virtue you're not addicted.
It can be a habit,
That's your
not an
natural
addiction.
state. Addiction is not your natural state. Right? Addiction is something away. Remember those two standards?
Mm.
Those are addictions. Sin is addiction.
For example, I have a habit that, for example, suppose that I'm reading every morning or every afternoon, I read 2 pages of Quran. Is this a kind of addiction?
No,
it's
it's a very positive trait. Right? Very positive trait.
But in general case, it's an addiction. For example, if I leave or abandon this
It's
habit,
the same way. Would you
Yeah.
call it addiction? For instance, first time, any smoker here?
No,
I
alhamdulillah.
used to.
Used to. First time you smoked, how did you feel?
it was very bad.
It was. I enjoy it.
No, first time.
First time.
a little bit like no shasha
Yeah. Well,
Nervous.
Weren't you scared?
Frozen.
Didn't you feel bad?
Yeah, exactly. But
First time you committed sin, you really feel bad.
yeah, exactly.
Because why? Because it's against your fitrah.
First time when a man smoked, he decided I will never smoke again.
Alhamdulillah. You see the point?
Yeah.
Because it's against fitrah. Any major sin, first time you consciously do it, extremely difficult. But this is the worst trick of shaitan. Once you fall for the first time, then there is no turning back. Continue to go.
But also,
Unless you come back.
it's the same with like if someone has not prayed for a long time and then you call him for salah, he's too like reluctant and
It's very
it's
difficult to come
very
back.
difficult for him to start, even though the praying is a good thing.
Yes.
It's very difficult for him for the first.
And it's not against fitra.
It's not against fitrah.
I know people who have come to Islam and gone away, come to Islam, gone away, come to Islam. Hopefully they died in a state of Islam.